Slow city lights, slow city nights, slow city lights, slow feels so right. 어제의 시간 멀어지고 slow city lights, I feel alive. 늦은 밤 거리 조용한 리듬 불빛 사이로 흐르는 feeling 사람들 속에 스치는 순간 어쩐지 오늘 가벼운 마음 멈췄던 시간 천천히 움직여 이 밤이 나를 데려가 Slow city lights shining tonight Slow city lights feel so right 흐르는 이 밤 다가가는 Slow city lights hold me tight 바람이 지나 머리를 스쳐 작은 멜로디 거리로 번져 익숙한 골목 낯선 이야기 오늘의 나는 조금 달라 조용한 heartbeat 리듬을 타고 이 밤이 나를 부른다 Slow city light shining tonight Slow city lights feel so right 흘러가는 밤 그 사이로 Slow city lights stay tonight 잠들지 않는 도시의 숨 그 안에서 나는 걸어 조금 느리게 하지만 free Slow city lights Slow city nights Slow city lights Slow feel so right 어제의 시간 멀어지고 Slow city lights I feel alive 늦은 밤 거리 조용한 리듬 불빛 사이로 흐르는 feeling 사람들 속에 스치는 순간 어쩐지 오늘 가벼운 마음 멈췄던 시간 천천히 움직여 이 밤이 나를 데려가 Slow city lights shining tonight Slow city lights feel so right 흐르는 이 밤 다가가는 Slow 도시의 숨 그 안에서 나는 걸어 조금 느리게 하지만 free slow city lights slow city night slow city lights slow feel so right 어제의 시간 멀어지고 slow city lights I feel alive 늦은 밤 거리 조용한 리듬 불빛 사이로 흐르는 feeling 사람들 속에 스치는 순간 어쩐지 오늘 가벼운 마음 멈췄던 시간 천천히 움직여 이 밤이 나를 데려가 slow city lights shining tonight slow city lights feel so right 흐르는 이 밤 다가가는 slow city lights hold me tight 바람이 지나 머리를 스쳐 작은 멜로디 거리로 번져 익숙한 골목 낯선 이야기 오늘의 나는 조금 달라 조용한 heartbeat 리듬을 타고 이 밤이 나를 부른다 slow city light shining tonight slow city lights feel so right 흘러가는 밤 그 사이로 slow city lights stay tonight 잠들지 않는 도시의 숨 그 안에서 나는 걸어 조금 느리게 하지만 free slow city lights slow city night slow city lights slow feel so right 어제의 시간 멀어지고 slow city lights I feel alive 늦은 밤 거리 조용한 리듬 불빛 사이로 흐르는 feeling 사람들 속에 스치는 순간 어쩐지 오늘 가벼운 마음 멈췄던 시간 천천히 움직여 이 밤이 나를 데려가 slow city lights shining tonight slow city lights feel city lights, slow city night, slow city lights, slow feels so right. 어제의 시간 멀어지고 slow city lights, I feel alive. 늦은 밤 거리 조용한 리듬 불빛 사이로 흐르는 feeling 사람들 속에 스치는 순간 어쩐지 오늘 가벼운 마음 멈췄던 시간 천천히 움직여 이 밤이 나를 데려가 slow city lights shining tonight slow city lights feel so right 흐르는 이 밤 다가가는 slow city lights hold me tight 바람이 지나 머리를 스쳐 작은 멜로디 거리로 번져 익숙한 골목 낯선 이야기 오늘의 나는 조금 달라 조용한 heartbeat 리듬을 타고 이 밤이 나를 부른다 slow city light shining tonight slow city lights feel so right 흘러가는 밤 그 사이로 slow city lights stay tonight 잠들지 않는 도시의 숨 그 안에서 나는 걸어 조금 느리게 하지만 free slow city lights slow city night slow city lights slow feel so right 어제의 시간 멀어지고 slow city lights I feel alive 늦은 밤 거리 조용한 리듬 불빛 사이로 흐르는 feeling 사람들 속에 스치는 순간 어쩐지 오늘 가벼운 마음 멈췄던 시간 천천히 움직여 이 밤이 나를 데려가 slow city lights shining tonight slow city lights feel so right 흐르는 이 밤 다가가는 slow 작은 멜로디 거리로 번져 익숙한 골목 낯선 이야기 오늘의 나는 조금 달라 조용한 heartbeat 리듬을 타고 이 밤이 나를 부른다 Slow city light shining tonight Slow city lights feel so right 흘러가는 밤 그 사이로 Slow city lights stay tonight 잠들지 않는 도시의 숨 그 안에서 나는 걸어 조금 느리게 하지만 free Slow city lights Slow city night Slow city lights Slow feel so right 어제의 시간 멀어지고 Slow city lights I feel 늦은 밤 거리 조용한 리듬 불빛 사이로 흐르는 feeling 사람들 속에 스치는 순간 어쩐지 오늘 가벼운 마음 멈췄던 시간 천천히 움직여 이 밤이 나를 데려가 Slow city lights shining tonight Slow city lights feel so right 흐르는 이 밤 다가가는 Slow 늦은 밤 거리 조용한 리듬 불빛 사이로 흐르는 feeling 사람들 속에 스치는 순간 어쩐지 오늘 가벼운 마음 멈췄던 시간 천천히 움직여 이 밤이 나를 데려가 Slow city lights shining tonight Slow city lights feel so right 흐르는 이 밤 다가가는 Slow city lights hold me tight 바람이 지나 머리를 스쳐 작은 멜로디 거리로 번져 익숙한 골목 낯선 이야기 오늘의 나는 조금 달라 조용한 heartbeat 리듬을 타고 이 밤이 나를 부른다 Slow city light shining tonight Slow city lights feel so right 흘러가는 밤 그 사이로 Slow city lights stay tonight 잠들지 않는 도시의 숨 그 안에서 나는 걸어 조금 느리게 하지만 free Slow city lights Slow city lights Slow city lights Slow feel so right 어제의 시간 멀어지고 Slow city lights I feel 늦은 밤
Trading up 2.9%, Nasdaq almost up 4%. So a massive rebound on the final day of trading of March. Of course, we're entering into a new month now. Take a look at Brent. We're still trading at around $105 this morning, up 1.4%. And perhaps because there is not clarity still about the fate of the Strait of Hormuz and how exactly that's going to be reopened and whether it's going to be a diplomatic solution or ultimately a military solution, still weighing here on the energy market. And then gold trading sideways today, but we are marked at around 4,000, well, just shy of $4,700. And I will say that it recorded its worst month in March since the GFC, which is surprising. Typically, in times of geopolitical uncertainty, you would expect gold to do quite well. That was not the case as investors started to price out interest rate cuts from the Fed, price in a more inflationary backdrop. Typically, that would be supportive of gold, but also reports of some emerging market central banks selling down their gold reserves to help support local currencies. So all of that really weighing on gold for the month of March. And switching over, one other interesting development as well, I spoke about the inflationary impact the energy shock is having on the world, and typically as well, that would lift US yields. What has happened in the last couple of days is investors have switched, the correlation has started to drift lower, i.e. yields has started to fall because investors are now pricing in a growth shock, perhaps surpassing that of the inflation shock, and that is being accounted for in some of these US Treasury markets. All right, let's get a further deep dive on what has been happening in Asia overnight. Winnie Su is in our Hong Kong studio. Winnie.
Yeah, morning, Jemana. We are seeing this very nice relief rally across Asian markets, from stocks to bonds to currencies. And here for the MSCI Asia, as you just mentioned, up more than 4%. And that's our biggest intraday gain since about a year ago. Leading gains today, you've got Kospi here up more than 7%. Japan's Nikkei 225 also up more than 4%. So overall, lots of optimism. But also worth pointing out that for these benchmarks, we are seeing, in fact, trading volumes below 3-month average. And that's showing you how investors actually lack conviction when it comes to chasing this rally and the sustainability of this rally, given still lots of uncertainty ahead. Now you kind of flip the board and take a look at what sector specifically driving the rally today. And tech sector here, you can see Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix, both up double-digit, and that's coming after, yes, that risk-on mood overall. But also we've got the strong data showing that memory chip prices increasing in March, and also with that some positive headlines from NVIDIA and also OpenAI. Back to you, Jemana.
Winnie, thank you so much. Winnie Su in Hong Kong. Well, many questions remain over President Trump's latest timeline of 2 to 3 weeks before the U.S. leaves Iran. It comes as rising energy prices and economic uncertainty are beginning to weigh on voters and the political outlook at home. Joining us now to unpack all of this is Patrick Shetmer, Associate Professor of Political Science at Seattle University. Really good to have you with us, Patrick. I just wonder whether it's coincidental that President Trump laid out that 2 to 3 week time frame on the day that U.S. retail gasoline prices shot above $4 a gallon.
I'm fairly confident it's not incidental. A party's fate tends to link closely to how gas prices and other key economic indicators tend to move. And since we are moving into the heart of an election year, I think that those kind of prices are definitely getting the Republican Party jittery.
How are voters thinking about this war? Do they look at it through a national security lens or through a cost of living lens? What resonates more back home?
Definitely with Americans, it resonates more as a cost of living issue. The war itself, I don't think, is particularly present in most Americans' lives, but the economic impacts of it, particularly the rising gas prices and the upticks in inflation that we're seeing here in the U.S., are definitely having an impact.
How would you say are Republicans broadly feeling about this war? I mean, there's, a good subsection of the so-called MAGA core unit that have been against U.S. expansionist policy, but at the same time, many hawkish members of Trump's own cabinet pushing for even more forceful action. How is this all splitting or resonating amongst the Republican Party itself?
While the conflict has been fairly unpopular overall, we have seen a pretty significant rally around the flag effect among Republicans. Republican support, depending on the poll you look at, hovers at around 80%, which is lower than the Democratic opposition rate, which is above 90%. But it's fairly strong for a sort of policy intervention that Republicans traditionally, at least since the Trump era, have expressed opposition to. That said, there are a number of framing issues, and particularly the fact that this conflict is connected with Israel certainly helps to boost support for it among Republicans, particularly among evangelical Republicans.
And are you seeing a generational divide? Is it that older demographics are tending to be more supportive of this war versus younger demographics within the Republican Party?
I don't think it's as much a generational divide. I think it's more an ideological and religious divide within the Republican Party. In general, though, like I said, Republicans are supporting this. The fractures that we are seeing are among the more nativist or more anti-Israel wings of the Republican Party. We've seen people associated with the podcaster Tucker Carlson, who represents a particularly nationalist and isolationist wing of the Republican Party, break off and begin to express opposition. And we do see some of the more elements hostile to Israel or even approaching anti-Semitic, like Joe Kent, who recently resigned from the administration, who are also mounting increasing criticism of the American intervention.
You know, what scope is there for public opinion to shift further? I mean, you just mentioned 90% opposition among Democrats, about 80% support amongst Republicans. How are those numbers likely to shift the longer the war goes on for?
Well, before conflict started out, we saw a poll coming out of the University of Maryland that showed only about 21% of Americans supported a conflict. Once the conflict began, support for the war shot up to about 41%. But we've already begun to see fairly significant erosion in that support level, where currently it's hovering around 36% on average across polls. So the fall off on it has been fairly rapid. And I think if it were to continue, and particularly if we were to see ground troops put in, it could plummet considerably further. One point of comparison might be George W. Bush. He ended up around a 27% by the end of the Iraq War.
So what does this all mean for the midterms? That's the big question. And I wonder whether at this point the Senate is actually up for grabs for Democrats. What is the data suggesting?
Right now, the data is suggesting, given the trends that we're seeing in polling, and particularly the questions asking what party would you like to see in control of Congress, that the Senate races are moving from a more of a Republican-leaning outcome to a true toss-up. Now, it's a long time till November, and there are a lot of things that could happen. But this intervention in Iran has put some more wind behind the sails of the Democrats. And we've seen that play out in anecdotal evidence. We saw that becoming an important theme in the recent No Kings protests over the past weekend. And we've seen it in the upticks in candidates who were not necessarily polling that strongly. People like Mary Peltola in Alaska, who's looking to knock off a Republican seat.
And, you know, it's very tough to get insight into President Trump's mind or what he's thinking. But given this is his second term, do you think as the U.S. president, he's more focused on a legacy-defining war and one that is perceived to have, you know, gone well for the U.S. as opposed to, you know, achieving a big victory at the midterms?
Well, I think he's got both in mind. I do think legacy is something that he's thinking about a little bit more. With the intervention into Venezuela and now this intervention here and the hawkish sounds we hear coming from the White House about Cuba, I do think that the president sees a possibility of putting sort of an expansionistic stamp on his presidency, something that he would see as a fairly strong legacy. But he has also repeatedly expressed concern that if the Democrats take over the House and the Senate, that he'll be able to block his further initiatives, prevent him from further reshaping the court, and as he's most frequently expressed, likely would be facing another impeachment.
Patrick, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. We need to have you come back on again. Patrick Shetmer, Associate Professor of Political Science at Seattle University. Well, coming up, Israel says it will occupy parts of Lebanon and keep out 600,000 residents. We have the details next. This is Bloomberg.
Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories. I'm Sherian in Tokyo.
And I'm Heidi Stroud-Watts here in Sydney, where the trading day begins. We're here in the centre of all the action to get you set up with the numbers, news and knowledge you need for the day ahead.
The demand is indeed recovering.
We've been waiting for this moment.
The opportunity of a century.
Join us on Bloomberg The Asia Trade. Weekdays only on Bloomberg TV. Context changes everything.
From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day, every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Stephen Engel at Japan's Akasaka Palace in Tokyo, and this is Bloomberg.
Welcome back to Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Jumana Versace in Dubai. Israel says it will take control of large parts of southern Lebanon and prevent more than 600,000 residents from returning to their homes as part of its campaign against Hezbollah. Defense Minister Israel Katz says the army will establish a security zone, that's what he's calling it, inside Lebanon, and all homes in villages along the border will be destroyed until the safety of residents in the north of Israel is assured. Let's go to Jerusalem now and speak to Bloomberg's Dan Williams. Dan, I feel as though the language that's been coming out of various Israeli officials the last couple of days has most definitely hardened, and they seem to be implying that the scope of the what they call a security zone, what Lebanese would describe as an occupation zone, seems to be expanding and shifting even more north. So walk us through the latest.
Roman, I think you're right. You may also be experiencing some historical deja vu. It's been over a quarter century since Israel ended its previous occupation of southern Lebanon back in the year 2000. You recall that was seen by many as an opportunity for Israel and Lebanon to establish finally peaceful relations, neighborly relations. That didn't happen. What happened was that Hezbollah, the cat's paw of Iran in the region, built up its military capabilities, including in southern Lebanon, with fighters and rockets, sometimes within touching distance of Israelis. Keep in mind that the proximity there between houses is very remarkable, certainly by Western standards. There are areas of the border where Lebanese and Israelis can literally peer each into the other's rear yards, backyards, or front yards, depending which way their houses are facing. What's happened now is Israel, in the wake of the October 7th attacks in the year 2023, which set off an ongoing regional war, now with a crescendo in Iran, have changed tack completely. They're no longer willing to tolerate threats on any of their borders. We've seen that in Gaza, we've seen it in Syria, and now we're seeing it in southern Lebanon, where, as you noted, not only have they sent in troops to fight Hezbollah, since Hezbollah joined in this war on the side of Iran, its main backer, on the 1st of March. They're sending in troops trying to push Hezbollah north to prevent rockets reaching deep into Israel. It's simply a matter of reducing the range of Hezbollah's remaining rockets if the rocketeers have to fire them from further inland in Lebanon. They're also saying they want to prevent a resumption of the mass evacuations of northern Israeli communities that we saw in 2023, 2024 under Hezbollah fire. Now they're saying Israeli civilians will stay put, Lebanese civilians will be displaced. Somewhere in the order of 1 million have been displaced. And given long-standing allegations that especially the Shia villages, they've been providing cover in some cases for Hezbollah, as you noted, there's something of a scorched earth tactic being employed against those frontline villages.
And Dan, irrespective, it seems, of what happens with the Iran war, even if President Trump decides to wind things down there in the next 2 to 3 weeks, it still seems very likely that the Lebanon front is going to persist for some while. Do we have any indication of timeline out of Israeli officials as to how long they foresee keeping and maintaining hold of this territory in southern Lebanon? Because, you know, you spoke about the displacement of up to 1 million people. It no longer seems to be a temporary displacement, but rather a more permanent one, which could have significant humanitarian impacts as well.
Absolutely, and it's significantly added to internal pressure, economic pressure, political pressure on that beleaguered Western-tilted government in Beirut. the Israelis are definitely saying they see this, while linked to the Iran war. After all, Hezbollah is an Iranian ally, as a more protracted campaign, a campaign that should be divorced from the Iran war. I would imagine they're not going to admit this, but should the Iran war end without Israel's objectives or aspirations vis-a-vis Iran being met, they will double down on trying to achieve something material and long-lasting in Lebanon. So yes, that will last. It could be months, but history tells us it could be years as well.
Bloomberg's Dan Williams in Jerusalem. Thank you for the latest there. Well, coming up, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa courts investors as the Iran war jolts the country's economic outlook. We'll bring you the details next. This is Bloomberg.
At 9:30 a.m., the market tells you what it's really thinking.
We beat the drum to the opening bell.
With deep analysis of the forces driving the price action.
Focusing investors on on what really matters.
Where the money flows, which markets are changing.
Conversations with players shaping the narrative.
Innovative growth companies gravitate to NASDAQ.
It's not just like, let's buy the Mag 7 or AI.
That's a really compelling story.
This is where your trading day begins.
And this is Open Interest.
Only on Bloomberg.
Key investors, top executives, global innovators. Join me for in-depth conversations with the biggest newsmakers on the day's top stories. Insight with Haslinda Ahmed, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you the world's business and financial news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee at Mount Everest, and this is Bloomberg.
Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm David Gura.
I'm Lisa Mateo.
And I'm Christina Ruffini. We're tracking breaking news today from Wall Street to Washington.
Let's start overseas. The sector is really propelling this deal forward.
Yeah, the hope is this will open up new markets and provide some additional liquidity.
Of course, now they're going to have competitors. We got a big week coming up in politics.
Earnings season is underway. We're going to get some key reports.
Everything you need to know before the markets open on Monday.
Introducing Bloomberg This Weekend, bringing a little Bloomberg into your weekend routine.
Guys, buckle up.
Welcome back to Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Jumana Bersachi in Dubai. The fallout from the Middle East conflict is reshaping global trade routes, with disruptions forcing companies to rethink how goods move around the world. South Africa's Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Alexander Abrahams, told Bloomberg that the country could be well positioned to benefit from rerouted shipping flows.
Well, I think the Middle East conflict has affected not just South Africa, it's affected the entire globe. And we see that with, trade routes. But, South Africa is strategically positioned. We sit on the tip of Africa, and that possesses an opportunity for trade routes to come past, Cape of Good Hope, past South Africa, and explore that as a new channel, as opposed to the channels that are now currently closed as the conflict, due to the conflict. We also are an entryway into the whole of the African continent. We have the African Free Trade Continental Area, which speaks to tariff duties, and zero tariff duties, and all of that. So while the conflict obviously has implications when it comes to cost of fuel, which would increase many things, cost of living, food, and that is a crisis that we will have to navigate. And government is at the forefront in negotiating with the multiple of stakeholders on how we mitigate some of those effects.
Have we already seen some of those windfalls that you alluded to, Cape of Good Hope, some ships being rerouted? Are you seeing that already, evidence of that?
So no, I'm not seeing that just yet. But Minister Barbara Creecy is currently on stage, and she was highlighting some of the logistical trade routes that have been opening up, but also focus on our freight rail routes that are opening up, connecting the ports with further inland provinces, and also inviting private companies to take up investment opportunities when it comes to opening up our rail networks, opening up what we now have, the Durban Container Corridor. And that Durban Container Corridor runs from Gauteng to the Richards Bay. And that is a project that is also currently in the pipeline with the Department of Transport.
South Africa's Deputy Trade Minister, that was Alexander Abraham, speaking with Bloomberg's Jennifer Zabazaja. Meanwhile, South Africa is moving to cushion the economic impact of the Iran war, cutting fuel taxes as oil prices surge and pressure builds on households and inflation. Deputy Finance Minister David Masondo told us they're better positioned than other emerging markets to absorb the shock, helped by strong commodity exports and improved fiscal buffers.
So in our case, we've been running budget surpluses, so we're better prepared insofar as the external shocks are concerned. And yes, we are a net importer of oil. However, we are also the largest exporter of gold, largest exporter of platinum, and these commodities are doing well. So this will offset the negative impact of this shock that we are seeing that is coming out of the war in Iran.
Our chief Africa correspondent Jennifer Zabazaja joins us from Johannesburg and has conducted those interviews at the forum. Really interesting to hear the perspectives from some of these officials you spoke to, Jen. They don't seem to be overly concerned about the impact of the war. Talk us through how it's resonating back home.
Exactly, Jumana, and that was really consistent with what we heard throughout the day. It was really this optimistic tone that we heard throughout a number of speeches from South African officials, including the two deputy ministers you pointed to there. And of course, the President Cyril Ramaphosa, who started this investment conference just a few years ago and pointed to some of what he saw as continued reform and progress for reasons why South Africa is what he calls a credible investment destination, despite some of those global headwinds. And you can take a look at some of the points that he was making for that reason. You know, he talks about some of the issues around the economy during apartheid, also, of course, COVID, during state capture under the former president, Jacob Zuma, and how the economy has weathered most of those shocks. And even Deputy Finance Minister David Masondo there pointing to how we did see sovereign risk premiums declining before this war started. So potentially that should give investors confidence. And you could see why they're saying that. The president has this very ambitious target for investments of 3 trillion rand, about $177 billion over the next 5 years. But still, there are quite a lot of headwinds. On the same day, there was also a fuel tax that was cut that could cost revenue. So quite a lot for the government that they're dealing with. But still, they're trying to strike an optimistic tone.
Jen, thank you so much. Jennifer Zabazaja, our chief Africa correspondent in Johannesburg. Well, it is a positive day for markets. Let's pick up the conversation with Daybreak Europe. This is Bloomberg.
Some people would say that there's maybe a little bit of a bubble in AI. When you have companies with market caps of $5 trillion, you don't see any bubble there at all?
Whenever we have an acceleration in technology and people get excited about it, you have significant capital formation around new companies that are trying to capitalize on that opportunity. And you know, we've seen this before through history, and you're seeing it now. It won't be a straight line. The opportunity set with AI is enormous. There will be winners and losers. And it's hard to pick the winners and losers now. And certainly a lot of the capital that's being deployed will not produce adequate returns. And a bunch of the capital that's being deployed will actually not produce any returns. But it's hard, it's hard to call the timing on these things. And the thing I'd point to just from a historical lens is in the fall of 1996, Alan Greenspan talked about irrational exuberance in stock markets, and the NASDAQ was at 1,300. And the NASDAQ peaked 3.5 years later at over 5,000. So, these things can go on for a long time, but ultimately, there are adjustments, there will be drawdowns, there'll be rebalancing, and just, it's hard to call it because the technology trend and the investment is real.
What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets? We are seeing modest gains across European equity markets.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
Live from London, this is Bloomberg Daybreak. I'm Bonnie Quinn with your top stories. Asian stocks join a global rally as optimism grows that the war in Iran could soon come to an end. President Trump signals the U.S. aims to end the conflict within 2 to 3 weeks, while the Wall Street Journal reports the UAE is lobbying for a military coalition to forcibly reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Plus, OpenAI's valuation tops $850 billion following its largest funding round on record. So let's take a look at these markets then. Boy, are they confounding. This April 1st, we have seen a massive rally in the previous U.S. session. The stocks, for example, was up 6.25%, Mag 7 up 4.5%. A huge tech rally. Obviously, the S&P 500 also rallying as well, up 2.8% on the session. That said, today we have crude oil still higher. Now it's below 105 a barrel on that better sentiment yesterday, which started with a little bit of a trickle on the Wall Street Journal report, but then sort of gained steam throughout the day as the Iranian president came out and made some comments that were interpreted as conciliatory, even though it's not clear Iran is changing its position. And then into the evening, when the president said within 2 to 3 weeks. Still, there are many thousands of troops in the region. The 10-year yield down another couple of basis points today at 428.89. Let's take a look at futures and see where we're headed for the April 1st session. Off the back of yesterday's rally, and Nasdaq 100 futures also pointed higher, gold gaining for yet another day. We're close to 700 an ounce now. Do want to point out Ed Yardeni saying that he will cancel his call for a correction if indeed the president declares mission accomplished when he speaks Wednesday evening in New York time. At the same time, he reserves the right to change his mind as often as the president does, and I think that is perhaps a little lesson for the markets. All right, your risk events on the radar today. At 10 a.m. UK time, we get Euro area unemployment data. That's for February. 1:30 p.m. UK time, we get US retail sales. That's also for February, but we also get ISM data for March later in the day. And then we have some central bank speakers today. The ECB's Piero Cipollone speaks, and the Fed's Alberto Musalem. Donald Trump says he expects the U.S. to end the war in Iran within 2 to 3 weeks. His comments suggest the U.S. has largely accomplished its mission and military goals in the region, including the regime change that it had sought.
I had one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not have nuclear weapons. But we're finishing the job. And I think within maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer, to do the job, but we want to knock out every single thing they have. Now, it's possible that we'll make a deal before that.
For more, I'm joined by Bloomberg's Washington Deputy Bureau Chief, Laura Davison. Laura, the president also indicated a deal might not even be necessary for the war to, quote-unquote, end, potentially leaving it up to other nations to resolve issues in the Strait of Hormuz. If he's intending on this ending within 2 or 3 weeks, why not pull out troops now? Why are there troops still there?
It is not clear. You know, throughout this entire process, Trump has really kept his options open, pushing for a deal, but also continuing to build up military assets in the region. Most presidents like to end. You know, the latest iteration is what has been a series of shifting goalposts of what he sees as success. He sees as the U.S. goals in the region. You know, he indicated that he thinks that the military operation is in its ending stages. He says he's satisfied with the regime change, which is really not whole-scale regime change, but sort of new people moving into some of those top jobs in the government. But what's not settled, and one of the issues that has been at the foremost of Trump's mind in recent days, is the Strait of Hormuz. He's now suggesting that he's going to withdraw militarily from the region, leaving the discussion and the negotiations and even perhaps even some sort of military fight over who controls that strait, that really critical waterway, to allies in the region and in Europe.
So we do get this speech tonight, the White House saying the president will address the nation to provide an update on Iran. I mean, what do we expect might come out of it? He needs to say something hopeful to the nation at least, right?
Yes, this is a relatively rare address for the president to call these primetime addresses. These are typically more somber occasions, and generally the president will read more from the teleprompter versus speaking off the cuff, as he really likes to do. And it tends to be a shorter speech with a specific message that he's there to deliver. This, announcement of this came, just a couple hours after he said he wanted to wrap up this military campaign within 2 to 3 weeks. So one can anticipate that this will sort of address what he sees as the next phase of the war, what he sees as the objectives. But a lot of this really remains left to be seen. Trump has set these deadlines, 2 weeks out for lots of things when it comes to geopolitics, when it comes to foreign policy, also when it comes to domestic matters, and repeatedly not met those. So he may be setting up a plan for what he sees happening over the next 14 days. But people are watching very closely about if this is something that the White House will actually keep to, or if this is yet again sort of an evolving process that could change at any given day.
Yeah, the market's certainly looking for clarity before the long weekend. Laura, thank you so much. That's Bloomberg's Washington Deputy Bureau Chief, Laura Davison. Euphoric reaction on Wall Street on signs that the war in Iran is nearing its end. More than 3/4 of stocks on the benchmark S&P rose as oil prices fell, and that sentiment is continuing into the Asian session. So let's get an update now from Winnie Su in Hong Kong. How goes it, Winnie?
Yeah, morning, Vonnie. As you mentioned, it is a very nice rally that we're seeing in Asian markets, from stocks to currencies to bonds. And here you're looking at MSCI Asia up more than 4%. And that is a rebound from the worst month since 2008. And actually the biggest intraday that we saw since a year ago. And here leading gains, you can see that Korea's Kospi index up 8%, as well as Japan's Nikkei 225 up more than 4%. That's also helped by some better than expected data from the Tankan survey, showing that business sentiment remains very solid in Japan. Now, overall, it is a relief rally that we're seeing. However, it's worth pointing out that trading volume on these benchmarks actually remain below 3-month average, and analysts telling us that this also shows that investors lacking conviction in terms of the sustainability of this rally, especially ahead of Trump's comments. And also, we are also closely watching how this war can potentially end. Now, you flip the board and take a look at the tech sector, because that is really leading the rally today, with Samsung and SK Hynix both up double-digit today. Now, it is that overall risk on sentiment, but adding to that, you've also got data showing that memory product pricing rose in March, and also you've got NVIDIA investing $2 billion in Marvell Technology, as well as OpenAI also completing its biggest funding round. So lots of optimism back in the AI space as well. Back to you, Vonnie.
All right, we'll see how long it lasts. Winnie, thank you so much. That's Winnie Su in Hong Kong. So those gains in Asia then, as we've been saying, following that rally on Wall Street, a massive rally with traders piling into U.S. equities after signals that an end may be in sight to the Iran war. Let's bring in Bloomberg MLive strategist Mark Cranfield. So frenetic buying, it just accelerated throughout the day, Mark. I have to ask you, it didn't exactly come out of nowhere, but is it completely justified and can be expected to continue?
There's going to be a lot of investors here who've got doubts about what they saw last night when they stand back and reflect. It was the last trading day of the month, indeed the last trading day of the quarter. March was a horrible month for US equities in particular. And so it wouldn't be too surprising that there will be a lot of short covering on the last day of the trading, particularly when there was some sound bites from Donald Trump, which sounded as though he's getting closer to an exit from Iran. That's exactly what investors wanted to hear. As you heard just now from Winnie, trading volumes in Asia today, the first day of the new quarter, although markets are higher, trading volumes are relatively low. And we're not seeing any follow through at all on S&P 500 and NASDAQ futures in Asia. That's a bit worrying. That means that when we come into the US session later today, traders will probably be a little bit defensive. They'll be waiting for that speech later in the day on television from Donald Trump. If there is not a clear, he may well talk about wanting to end the war in a short period, but unless there is some clarity on when the Strait of Hormuz is going to be running freely, investors will not be that impressed. Treasury yields have come down a little, but not that far really. The US dollar is still pretty strong, and oil prices are continuing to go back up. All of those things suggest there's a very high bar to convince long-term investors to pile back into US equities just yet. There could be some disappointment before the end of the day. This doesn't look like it's anything much more than a big knee-jerk short covering rally. It could well be it unravels pretty much as quickly as it started. The signs are not that optimistic. Even though it's a big rally yesterday, the signs are not that great when Wall Street trading gets underway later today.
All right, Mark, we are hearing you and taking that position in mind. Mark Cranfield, strategist at Bloomberg M Live, with some warnings there, essentially. The UAE is preparing to help the US and other allies open the Strait of Hormuz by force, according to a report by the Wall Street Journal. The move would make it the first Persian Gulf country to actively engage with Iran. Let's bring in Bloomberg Horizons anchor Jumana Bercecci. Jumana, how serious is the UAE and how exactly could it get involved?
Well, there's something interesting that has occurred in the last 24 hours, Vonnie, which is that the White House and President Trump himself seems to be delinking the war objectives in Iran from the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. And that came up once again yesterday when he delivered those comments as well. The expectation is that somehow the Strait of Hormuz will end up getting resolved. And the question here is, does it get resolved diplomatically, or will there be some sort of military solution in order to reforce or force open the Strait of Hormuz? Now, Wall Street Journal reporting overnight that the UAE are weighing up or considering to get involved militarily, and by putting forward or lobbying for a United Nations Security Council resolution that